this evening will be none other than Ashley Laurence.
It's on. Hello, are we on? Welcome, everybody. My name is Andrea Subissati. I came all the way down from Canada. I wouldn't come for just any festival. But I'm like a Cenobite, basically. You call me, I come. Angel to sun, something, something. And my special guest here needs no introduction because gravity just did it. Welcome, Ashley Laurence. Welcome. First time in Salem? It is, yes. Wow. And what do you think? You love it? Yeah. Salem is like Mecca for spooky little girls who played with Ouija boards and legs of feathers, stiff as a board at sleepovers. Were you a spooky girl?
I wasn't a spooky girl. I was a weird, stay by myself, draw to make friends girl.
That counts. That's pretty spooky, I'd say. I mean, you're definitely a spooky girl now. You're Kirsty Cotton.
I didn't think of it as a horror film. Hellraiser.
What? Say more.
Okay. So I was in a teenage drama workshop, and a girl called me and said they can't find the actress to play the role of Kirsty Cotton. They'd gone to Chicago and New York and Los Angeles. They were on their way home to London, and would I go in and cold read? And so I went in and I met Clive and I met Chris Fig, and Clive sounded like one of the Beatles, and he said, your uncle is in your father's skin, he's trying to kill you and have sex with you, probably in that order, go. So I cold read, and I was young and sort of cocky, and they were like, would you come to London to do a screen test? I don't know. So we went over there, and then Doug played Andy's role in the Chinese restaurant, and he also played Pinhead. So I did the screen test, and then Clive said, they want a name, I want you, I'm gonna push and try to get you the part. And then that's when I thought that the director always got what they wanted, but we did. And he called about a week later and he said, we got it.
Okay. Because I was doing some research before this Q&A, which is to say I looked at your Wikipedia page. And on it, there's an anecdote that you got into acting the same way I got into smoking.
You
to
liked a
impress
boy.
a boy.
Yeah. I grew up as an only child, but with 4 adults. So I was by myself a lot, and I had a big box of clothing. This is kind of sad. I would wear different outfits, and then I would draw my friends. I'd also lay by the door jamb and bark when the mailman would come. But so what were you saying?
Who was the boy?
Okay, so I loved this boy, as you do, and he went into this teenage drama workshop, so I followed him in, and then he left and I stayed, because all you had to do was tell the truth and feel what you were feeling. And I didn't necessarily get to do that growing up, so it was the safest place in the world for me.
Okay. So Clive tells you all that. And we were talking a little bit earlier about what it's like to be in the presence of Clive. And that guy has an orbit. He has an aura. Everything is possible when you are in the presence of such pure, unadulterated genius. And so he tells you that you're going to be in this super fucked up movie, and did you trust him immediately?
Yeah, I trusted him immediately. We have a real deep resonance artistically. We would draw on the walls in between setups, and I would say okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, how upset? 11. So we had all that. In the first movie, there's a scene with maggots. That wasn't in the script. And so that was the day the investors were there, and they're all in their like 80s business suits and wanting to see where their money's going. And Clive comes up to me with a maggot wrangler because it's wrangling. And he said, so they're not going to hurt you because you're alive. And he put his hand in this box, and the thing is, their little bodies are covered in sawdust, so they don't stick together. So they make this like shh sound. So he stuck his hand in, and he was like, "Trust me." I'm like, "Okay." So then the scene, I'm backing up, and I don't want Uncle Frank to find me, but they wanted me sweaty, so they sprayed me down each time, and I bump, and then the mouth opens, and they fall. They were in my bra. I was sitting on it. It was squishy, but you know, he was so collaborative too. Like you could always say, "I feel this," and he was open to it. I think that's part of his brilliance, is that he's never intimidated by anyone else's ability because he's so self-actualized. He has so many things to offer that he's not afraid of the alchemy that comes with collaboration.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he clearly trusted you too.
Yeah.
But if you talk to him about Hellraiser, he'll say, "I was so green. I was so young. I was so inexperienced." And yet he commanded the set.
That's Clive. and it truly is his vision. And he was literally in the trenches with us. And like there's this scene where I take the puzzle box from Julia, and I was like, "What if rigor mortis set it?" He's like, "Yes." So, you know, I had to wrestle with it. And he was always there with you because he's so multifaceted that he was never one of those like sit back and watch kind of people. We didn't really know what we were doing other than everyone was completely invested in what we were doing.
And what you were doing was making history. Like, I think everyone will agree that Hellraiser is very singular. It remains very singular. There will never be another Hellraiser.
Yeah.
Well, there might
There would be like 30.
be several more.
So many. You know, when I first got the script, each of his characters, I didn't know his writing, I didn't know anything, but each character had a different cadence, they had a different agenda, they had different drives, and when you open the puzzle box, the way it was described, that there were all of these nude bodies undulating as you looked into the cube. It was exquisite, but I never thought it was weird, I never thought it was scary, I never thought it wasn't possible. It made complete sense to me.
Mm-hmm. Well, I love that you bring out the book, because the character of Kirsty was quite different in the book. But did you have the opportunity to read the story before the film?
No, and actually I haven't fully read it, and I know that's weird.
It's so
but
short.
it's because it's my childhood. It's because for me it was so developmental. It's so much a part of my life. I'm still friends with and in love. Clive's one of the greatest loves of my life, and we're close. And it like Doug married Steph, and Steph is one of my best friends, and it's just to read something like that. I just never wanted to take it out of my life experience.
Okay.
I probably could now, but initially I didn't know about it.
Hey, you do you.
Thank you.
So going into this film, were you a horror fan?
No,
Not at all.
no.
So you didn't have a sense of, you know, there's a thing called a final girl, and you know, there's all these movies coming out where young women were being terrorized and they come out on top because they're plucky and they're cool. Like, you weren't like stoked to be one of them.
No, I actually didn't think of Hellraiser as a horror film.
Oh
I
my.
thought of it as a love story.
Yes.
I just knew that, as you were talking about empathy, and I knew that I was the empathetic person in the film, that if I didn't feel it or believe it, no one else would. And it's a whole lot easier to watch someone else for 90 minutes struggle with, you know, mortality and demons from hell and all of these things from a voyeuristic point of view, that I knew that I was helping people experience my experience.
Okay.
So it was more that.
Yeah, but like also being a bad bitch. I mean, like,
Oh,
presumably you haven't experienced banishing demons to hell.
well, metaphor. Have some exes. I knew that I wanted to look awful. I knew that I didn't have a good hair day. I knew that that I didn't want to fall right after I took my top off to be murdered because I have a sexuality. I knew that there was an inherent need to fight back, and that if you're afraid, it's really the only time that you can have courage. It doesn't exist if you're not afraid. I didn't want to exhibit this impervious, inhuman person. It sucked, and it needed to suck, and there had to be something to fight for as well as just fight against.
It makes sense though that you weren't well versed in the trope, because I think that's why so many audiences respond so strongly and so singularly to Kirsty, is because she seems so real. So what about now, so many years after the fact, looking back on that era of horror cinema, do you have a sense of where Kirsty Cotton fits into the pantheon of Final Girls?
I don't think so, because it's so subjective. I don't know, it's sort of like looking at old photographs for me, but like I said, I'm still close with the people involved. So it's more familial for me in the truest sense. Andy is amazing, both Franks, skinless and they're actually doing conventions now, so it's like Kirsty and the Franks. I'm like, it sounds like OnlyFans.
I subscribe. I love that you all stay in touch, because I knew that Clive had a relationship with Doug Bradley, who eventually played Pinhead. He wasn't originally cast as you mentioned it, and it felt like a family affair. But I also understand that there were reshoots after the fact where some of the stop motion sequences were added. So when did you realize what movie you were in? Was it when you were sitting in the cinema, or when you saw the ads come out?
I think it was when I was in the theater for the screening. We did it, I think it was at the Egyptian. And people were bringing their little kids, and I was like, nah. And there's the scene where Chatterer comes, and he puts his fingers in my mouth. And most everybody laughed, initially. And they laughed, and then they stopped laughing. And I went, oh, there it is.
I don't find that scene funny at all. It's so disturbing. It is so invasive. And like, I don't know, maybe if you told me they tasted like Cheetos. That's my
They tasted like coffee and Caro syrup and KY and sweat. Also OnlyFans.
So you and Clive had so much in common, both being visual artists. Was that evident from the get-go?
Yeah, because we both speak in metaphor, and I could understand the kind of breadth of what he was communicating. We were very open. It was on a lot of different levels, and I just feel like there's this deep fluidity and understanding and a fearlessness, actually.
It translates to the screen, and what also translates to the screen, and another thing that I think is so singular about Hellraiser is, you know, it concerns these hetero-ish, no, they're hetero, but they're not normative. These relationships, and this film is so queer. It is so deeply queer, and it's just got, you know, it's got the BDSM, got the subculture nods to it. Did that feel really overt on set, that you were making something very transgressive? Because you make it sound like a cakewalk.
Well, it wasn't. I mean, the subject, just the intensity of what this character was going through, but I didn't put any sort of label on it like that. I didn't know. All I knew was this character was trying to get over there, and there were all of these things in front of it. And I was gonna call him Doug. Pinhead.
He's called Doug.
He's Doug. He's not judgmental. There is really no good and evil. There's no judgment in an ethical way. He really just gives people what they ask for. So to me, it was very honest and ethical in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant, because there have been papers written about this series about who is the real villain of Hellraiser, and like Pinhead has such an iconic appearance, and certainly as the franchise went on, it kind of geared toward that. But it occurred to me earlier today, I was like, Kirsty is the Hellraiser of Hellraiser. Because insofar as Frank makes the mess, you're there to clean it all up, and you use the Cenobites against him.
Yeah, sort of. I think that he kind of gives her a break just because she's not really against him. She's for her dad. She's for life. She's for the truth, and I believe so is he.
Yeah, but there's also like a duplicitous kind of manipulation going on. But even that feels kind of honest, like, I'm a fucking demon, lady. What did you expect?
Like this is me, this is you, you're in a lot of trouble if you don't provide. And that's my favorite scene, is the one where Kirsty, I keep wanting to say I. So when I run in and I don't know that my dad's not my dad, and they've just done their thing, and Claire's like petting me like lamb to the slaughter, and they shot it with multiple cameras so we only had to do one take. So we were all just deeply in it, and it happened in real time, and those are the best, when you actually just get to organically create something, and it's preserved for that moment. Even the voiceover, like the scene with chatter in my mouth, take that out of context. Clive didn't, back then they had these giant wind machines, and the smoke was oil-based. So the entire set were wearing masks, but I was fine. I'm like, really? So they've got all this smoke and these wind machines, you can't really hear me. And if you watch the movie, there's a lot of like, stuff, because there was real struggle, but there's this like underpinning of a whir sound. He just kept it, because he didn't want me to overdub that performance, and he thought the kind of imperfection of that scene also made it incredibly uncomfortable.
So true, and those are the moments I think that make that film so powerful. And as you say, your relationship with Pinhead, the intimacy with Doug really shines through. And I'm going to want to talk more about that when we talk about Hellraiser 2. But Hellraiser comes out, it knocks everyone's socks off. Nobody's seen anything like this. What was that like?
I didn't know better. Like I had no point of reference. This was my first movie. It was just lightning in a bottle. I didn't know. Doug still, like, I wasn't doing conventions for a very long time. He's like, come out to these, it's popular. And I thought, I'm just gonna be some lady behind a desk saying I did a movie once. He's like, no, people actually love this film. And Clive and I talk about it. We're kind of amazed that you all love it, and it's very, very meaningful that you do.
As your first big feature film, and as somebody who didn't really have big Hollywood aspirations, was there maybe a teeny tiny secret part of you that would hope that it would like do poorly and disappear?
No, I had no business acumen whatsoever.
And so here you are, you're an actress, you're Kirsty Cotton, this movie is gangbusters, obviously we have to make a sequel. What was your initial, or did it feel like that? Did it feel like a slam dunk?
When I signed on for the first one, contractually I was signed for the second one. So I was just in it.
Okay.
So I had no point of reference. They were just like, get on a plane. So I remember I cut my hair, and I was growing up, so I was physically changing, but it's kind of like, you know those soap operas where someone goes up to do their homework and they just don't come down? Like it wasn't mentioned that I woke up different.
The character of Kirsty grew up a little bit too.
Yeah, I mean after that, it's a tough day.
That'll make anybody grow up. So Hellraiser 2 brought back several of the cast members. Now, I imagine that must have been difficult.
I was calling him all the time.
Yeah. But I imagine, like, you must have felt a loyalty to him, but also a loyalty to this character, and a contractual obligation as well.
Well, I know Pete Atkins, the writer too, and he's a very dear friend. It was just a completely different energy. I couldn't go into it wanting it to be the same thing. Tony's very, very different personally, he's very different artistically. His vision was completely, almost, Clive's is so visceral, and it's so red, and it's so sticky and sweaty, and Tony wanted that, really clean, sterile, except for the scene where he slices his genitals off, which they wired it so there was a tube, and we all knew that was going to happen, but the crew did not. And all of these guys, you guys, I'm still watching it, and they're just pale.
The frustration heard across the world. But Clive was there for you, and you were calling him all the time. Was he coaching you?
No.
Or just being there as a pal?
Well, he was just there as a pal, and there were times I'd be like, she has no tears left. Like, not as an actress, I could find those, but a lot of times I thought that the character would be cried out by then. And when you go through so much, sometimes there's just none of that energy left. There are just no more tears to cry, and something else shows up in you. And so that was very interesting for me as a person too, and nice, because he wants to cry all the time.
Everyone's got to grow up. And at this point, there's like a 4-year pause in the franchise. Was this where the convention energy started cooking up, where you were like a bona fide horror icon?
No, I waited a very, 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 very long time to be lured out by Doug. And I remember the first convention, I was coming downstairs and I was in a tank top, and I'm little. And Adrienne Barbeau was coming down with me. She's like, "You're just wearing that?" Yeah, why? She's like, "Talk to me after." So, I mean, when I'm standing, I'm like armpit height. So there's a lot of hugging and my hair and stuff, and I came back and she just laughed.
This needs to be a Facebook thread.
It's a lot of bodies.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very
I never would
organic.
have thought of that. What a queen.
Two people, two separate women asked for a lock of hair in menstrual blood.
Oh no.
I told them the timing was off.
I was going to ask you what the most messed up thing that someone asked for in a convention was, but I hope that was it.
There were some others, but I can't.
Has anyone come to you with a really surprising take on what Hellraiser meant to them?
Some of the military, a lot of people have watched it in the military while they were in service. They would watch it before they went out, and I think it's because the character is afraid and does it anyway, and to know that was powerful. That's been a lot. That's been amazing.
Yeah, and even come to think of it, Pinhead's backstory of having been in the military and then just kind of, I would like some pleasure, please, and uh-oh, you're a monster. Hate when that happens.
Also people with varying relationships with physical pain and dysmorphia and sexuality. All of those things impact people individually, and their takeaway is always really fascinating.
So at this point in your career, you're taking some other roles, but did you ever feel kind of a pull to be like, oh, I think horror's my thing?
Well, I love the honesty of it. I love the rawness of it. I don't think that being sad or being angry or being ferociously upset is a negative. It's all part of it. There's humor in it too, and I just feel like it's all one big bag of flesh, and that we get to exhibit that. It's not that different than comedy in that way. It's an extreme version of being alive, and that's, I think, what makes it so palpable and so important.
It's so interesting to me how consistent your attitude toward the series is with Doug Bradley's, because I've had many opportunities to interview him, and I'd ask him this repeatedly because I liked the answers so much, but did you ever worry about being typecast? Like, now you're Pinhead and you're the Pinhead guy and you're always going to be the Pinhead guy. And you know what he'd say? I'm happy to be working. I'm happy to be pleasing fans.
Yeah.
I think that's beautiful. That makes me love him.
He's amazing.
So then we come to Hellseeker.
Woo!
What was it about Hellseeker that brought Ashley Laurence back to Hellraiser?
Contract.
Do you mean to tell me you committed to 3 films?
No. The third one, they just, by then I had grown up more, so I was wearing a wig and padded clothes, and they said she just finds you on a, are you talking about, wait, Hellseeker 6?
Yes.
Sorry, I thought that was 3. It's a blur, it is a blur of
To us
movies.
too.
Yes, okay, so Doug was doing Hellseeker.
Yes.
And he said, there's the role of Kirsty, are you bringing Ashley in? And they were like, no. And he said, you should. So he called me at home and said, do you want to do this? And I said, sure, but I didn't believe that character would betray her own morality. I just don't think she's built for it. And so, and I know there's a point of contention with the comics and the Cenobite and all of it. It's all very interesting to me, but for me personally at that time, I said I don't think she would have thrown everyone under the bus, and I don't think she would kill innocent people. Mm-hmm. And so over sushi and a lot of sake, the writers decided it was a dream. So I don't know if that even came across in the film. I did get hypothermia though. I got to swim with 2 of these frogmen in Canada, and I was wearing clothes from the film. And they're like, do you want to go in? Yes. So all through dinner, I was swimming with these guys. I have a breathing apparatus off of their tanks. I've never scuba dived in my life. So we're swimming around, and I think it's how it's going to be. No. So they pull me out, and they're like, okay, so you're going back down. There's no frogmen. There's no breathing apparatus. Just as soon as you get out, struggle with the seatbelt, pretend like you're losing consciousness, undo the seatbelt, float away, and wave goodbye. Okay. So I try to do that, and then I realize I can't breathe, and they don't know I can't breathe, so they think I'm acting. So I'm like splashing around, and I get up, and the real frogmen are like, we're cutting this, she's going to die, it'll be interesting film, but no. So then they put the stunt woman in, and she went down there, and the car was submerged, and so it was really deep, and she's like, no effing way. Like, she wouldn't do it. So what they ended up doing was they put a chair and the camera, and so I'd be like this, and then I'd go back up and go back down, so that I could drown but be on my own haunches. So it was a lot safer.
Commitment to the character.
It was fun.
Goodness.
The hypothermia was not fun.
But I feel like even in that film, Kirsty was able to kind of weaponize the Cenobites, and that kind of like, it felt like it really made sense to me.
Well, it's nice when women are allowed to be intelligent.
Imagine that, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I imagine that prior to then, like, there was a point in your career where you're starting to wonder if you're going to be the Hellraiser girl forever.
I like being the Hellraiser girl forever.
And was that like, is that out of a love for the character, or the fan response to the character?
You are amazing to me. Like, it consistently astounds me, and I am very, very grateful to have had any kind of impact and to be involved in something that's loved so much. I think we all just want to matter, and we all want to feel like we contributed something of merit during our lifetime, and so that's incredibly powerful for me. But now, as an adult looking at the film, I mean, there's so much subject matter that at that point I didn't understand, and I was like, called Clive, I'm like, Clive! I said, Clive. But also, I had gone through something, and I called him, and he had me come over. He was painting, and I was telling him something that had happened, and he dropped his paintbrush, and he turned, and he sat, and we talked all night. And he took me through, he has a house filled with, I think it was Aberrat at the time. And he, in real time, Clive Barker took me through all of his paintings and the story. And I realized that people like me are victorious in his world. I've always been safe with him. So it's more, this is my life, more than just a film I was involved in.
That is so. He's so self-deprecating and so doubtful about the impact that he made. So at least one of you is feeling
Super
that.
humble, beautiful.
But you're not finished bringing art to the world, are you?
I was the weird kid that drew during recess because I'm very shy.
Well, I'm gonna make you talk about it because you were showing me some artwork on your phone that was just unbelievable.
Thank you.
Tell us.
Okay, well, I had a lot of time by myself, and I have a vivid imagination, and so I think I was also told I have synesthesia, which is when your senses blur. So the name Wendy tastes like mayonnaise, and you know, everything's sort of blended together. So a lot of times, I'll draw that way, and I actually think I was ambidextrous, but it was the 70s, so they made me right-handed. But I paint with both, and so that's very freeing for me. And again, it's a very safe place, and it's becoming a conduit for something more than just myself, which is a happier place for me to be. So that's what art always was. And in school, because I was shy, if you draw, and you draw okay, people come around. And so that was a conversation starter. And so as long as I didn't draw the teacher, which I did and got in a lot of trouble, but as long as I was drawing, people would come around, and then there was a relatability. Is that a word? Yes? Okay. It was a social lubricant for me, and it was also a way to express myself when I didn't always feel like I fit in.
So the stuff that you were showing me, and again, like this was an hour ago, and just briefly on your phone, I was organic, inorganic, sometimes crossed over together. I saw a lot of Clive in it, to be honest.
Yeah.
Are these things that you think of before you put
A lot of times. Well, I have almost two different styles. I didn't realize, but I have sort of a cartoony, like a cat head on a stick kind of thing, with like wacky eyes and like the idea of a tail. But these are my friends. It's like the guy from Blade Runner. Like I drew them, I made them. So I have all of these creatures, and then I love the weight distribution of the human body. I love that. I love how sticky we are, and how we're sort of stuck in this for as long as we're stuck, and sometimes we feel bigger than that, but we're still within the parameters of our own skin, and that struggle. And so to draw the human form is very exciting for me, and I like to use oils a lot because you can paint in really thin layers, and then the light refracts through the layers, and I think that's more telling of our human flesh. And also I had a beautiful art teacher, and he said, if you were going to draw a phone, so what? You could take a picture of it. But if you were going to like give it the properties of people longing for it to ring, or people dreading for it to ring, and breathing into it, and the intimacy of it, if you could impart that energy into the phone, how powerful that would be. And I remember in an acting class, I did a love scene, and he said, okay, that was great. Now love this person for anyone who's ever loved anyone.
Now, when it comes to a novel or a film, it's easy to tell when it's horror. You know, genres sometimes slip and slide, but a horror film is a horror film. How would you characterize your art? Could you give it a genre? I mean, like what you're describing, it is pretty much in line with what it is. We're like the horror within, the corporealness of being in this sticky meat sack. How would you characterize your art?
Oh, sticky meat sack.
Sticky, maggoty, tastes like KY.
Chicken. Well, I did, it's an autopsy. I never thought my art was dark. That's the thing, is I just told the truth of whatever that moment was. So I didn't give it a value judgment like that. So I have this one, she's sort of sleeping, she's not that upset, she's dead. She has a big Y incision, and I put it in a door, and I was going through a bad breakup, and I thought, well, when I'm done with this, I'll be done with that relationship. And so it served as that, for sure.
Okay. And where can we see your art?
Clive's art books were done by Phil and Sarah Stokes, and
Yes, she's talking about the Imaginer series, which is a series of like 6 huge hardcover art
they're
books.
beautiful.
And they are stunning. And throughout, like, there's pictures of younger Clive, theater Clive,
Clive.
Lime Clive,
Yeah.
Clive and Doug when they were babies. Sorry, go on.
You don't know, I was just thinking Baby Clive and Clown Clive. I have a clown picture very similar to his clown picture. We have a lot of those sort of things. Like when I did Cat Head on a Stick, it's orange on its narrative. But he was drawing an orange cat at the same time, and we were doing a convention, and I was there first. I get social anxiety, and I thought, I'm gonna draw him something soothing, and it wasn't. I was drawing a raven with an eyeball, and why am I drawing this? But I kept drawing it, and when he was over there, right there, drawing something in one of those books, I came over, I said, I drew this for you, and he said, this is for you, and it was the same thing. It's amazing. We've done that a few times. So yeah.
Wow. Okay, so going back to the books.
Yes, so back to the books. So they said, we've seen your art, can we do a coffee table book of your art? And I said, because I have a imposter complex, what does Clive say? And he said it's about time. So they're doing that, and we're going to London at the end of this month to talk about it.
I feel so fortunate to have gotten a quick peek, and hopefully we can help bring that to the masses through Rue Morgue. Let's talk more after, but holy shit.
My mom's friends are always like, why doesn't she paint botanicals?
Botanicals and eyeballs, perhaps. Why not? I'm so excited for that, and thank you so much for this intimate conversation. When we talk about your art, you just light up, and even the way you talk about your movies and your work is so unique and special and intimate and singular, and I think we're all so grateful to have you in the horror world and at Salem Horror Fest this year.
Thank you so much.
We're gonna watch Hellraiser 2, and I love watching a movie when I know something behind the scenes. Can you give us perhaps a moment that you improvised, or something that went afoul before it went right that we can look for in the film?
The shower scene, I put happy faces over my breasts.
Can't top that. Thank you. Thank you.
Information that I just received from this Q&A, Andrea, thank you so much. And I